Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is full-on summer in Japan, which means summer book sales at Kinokuniya, where everything is at 60% off. It is the time to buy English language and French language books. Now, I did not do the French language books sale because I knew I was going to France, so I did not go to that one, but I did go to the English book sale. And although I don't know what here are my expectations. Last year I went to the English book sale and I didn't buy a single book, but I think that's because I went there at the very end of the book sale, so the only thing left in the piles were like Dan Kuntz books, Dan Brown books, kind of like those kind of like thriller, suspense kind of detective books that I don't read. This time though, I went the very first weekend of the 2-week event, and wow, there was a lot of selection, and I think I probably did get a little carried away, but it's a good carried away, so we are going to go with it. And I got such a good deal. It's kind of disgusting how good of a deal I got on this, and so I will share all that with you with my English summer book haul. So first, which direction I go to? Should I start with the Japanese stuff? Let's start with the Japanese stuff. So I did get some Japanese stuff in English translation. I know technically I should be reading these books in Japanese, but you know what? You can't do it all. You can't do it all. And it is kind of good I do like getting the feel of the English translation world, just to see how stuff is getting translated these days, who are the translators and whatnot. So I did get a few books of Japanese fiction into English translation, starting with Beast in the Shadows by Edogawa Rampo. If you know, I just read my first Edogawa Rampo back when I was on my vacation in the Philippines, and I loved it. I actually had to check to make sure this was not the same book, just because that one is called The Blind Beast, which technically, if you were to like be more creative, the title could be called Beast in the Shadows. So I did check, but it's not the same book. But I really liked the idea. I mean, I really enjoyed that book, and I decided that I want to get to know a little bit more about Edogawa Rampo. So I decided to pick up this mystery that just sounds really neat. It's also very interesting. It's a perfect train ride kind of book. It's wonderful. I'm very excited to read this. And then I picked up the book All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. I have actually never read one of her books in full. I do own here, it's actually right next to me, Chichitoran, which is Breasts and Eggs. This is the original Breasts and Eggs book. It's not the English translation version. I've mentioned that many times, so I'm not going to mention it here. But this is a book that I got like about almost halfway through, and I never finished it. It's actually kind of difficult to read, to be honest. I think now I would do better, but I just have to try again. But at the time I was reading it, it was a little bit difficult, so I didn't get too far in it. So I've never actually finished one of her books, and then I've never read one of her books in completion. So I decided I would pick this one up, just to get a feel. I just kind of want to see how she's translated, because her Japanese style is quite unique, to be honest. Especially her dialogue, or at least in Breasts and Eggs, her dialogue, it's a lot of dialect, and it's like very fast women talking in their dialect, like gossipy and whatnot. And so I'm actually really curious to see how she's translated into English. So I thought, you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up one of her books. Now, I'm not sharing you the blurbs with you because I don't remember. I bought these like a month ago. But, you know, they're very famous Japanese authors. Like, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. I also picked up Tanizaki. I purchased Quicksand. What was the last Tanizaki that I read? It's been a while. It really has been a while. I couldn't even tell you. It was probably one of his shorter novellas. But I do like Tanizaki. I've read many of his works and I really enjoy him, but I never read Quicksand, so I decided I would add this to my pile. The next book that I picked up was The Setting Sun by Osamu Dazai. This is a book that I have actually already read. I actually read this book in the French translation. However, I read it a very long time ago. I don't really remember much of the story, if anything at all. And also that book got very severely damaged, and I had to throw it away because otherwise it was going to collect mold. It wasn't good. So even though the font on this is quite awful, like pretty bad. Who publishes this? A New Directions paper book. Plus, this is one of the newer editions. If you can see, there's like a little bit of like cover damage. Like basically the reason all these books are 60% off is because it is the books that got slight damage, slight wear and tear, or maybe like overstock. But I mean, for the 60% off, I mean, this still looks beautiful. I'm not gonna complain. But yeah, so this book is to replace the French translation that I had to throw away, and I would like to reread it because I just don't remember anything about it. Then I also decided to pick up Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata. This is an author who is very easy to read in Japanese, and so I never really had any intention of buying her the translations of her books because I would like to read them in Japanese. But once again, I was very curious to see just how the translation feels. Does it keep her voice? Do I feel it keeps her style? I've now read 2 of her books in Japanese. I do have a good feel for her style now, which I really quite like. I think she's not that difficult to translate. So I don't see there being too much discrepancy between her actual voice in Japanese and then her voice in English translation. But I am still curious to get a feel for that and see how I feel about the translation. Who translated this? Jenny Tapley Takemori. Yeah, like she's a pretty well-known translator. I'll present the translators of these books when I read them, but I definitely don't have. I'm not trying to dismiss translators. Obviously, I don't think I'm giving off that vibe. But because I do tend to read a lot of books in their original language, other than like a few exceptions. But in general, French books I read in French, English books I read in English, etc., etc. I definitely don't have the habit of mentioning translators, so that's something I'm working on. But yeah, just know that when I read these books, I'll definitely give you the translation, the translator's name. So those are all the contemporary works that I bought for Japanese translation. I get into classics, which is like basically Penguin classics and vintage classics. There are definitely 2 more Japanese books within this section, but I kind of went by publisher to present these videos. So let me show you what I got first. Let's start with the Penguin classics. I got a good selection of Penguin. There was like a lot. Like I could have gotten a lot more. Like all the Charles Dickens books were on sale. There was a lot of Tolstoy. There was a lot of Dostoevsky, but I'm just not in the mood to Dostoevsky. I mean, I wouldn't pick that up. But like, I hesitated on War and Peace, to be honest. I did hesitate to buy whether or not I was going to buy War and Peace, but I decided against it because I already had a really good selection, and I didn't want to like overcrowd everything. So let me tell you what I bought in these Penguin classics. Let's start with the Japanese book that I got, that actually was surprised because I remembered when I saw this, I was like, wait, I've never ever read that, to be honest. You would think I had read this, but I haven't. And that is the Pillow Book by Shonagon. Yeah, I've never read this. I've read The Tale of Genji. I would like to reread The Tale of Genji because I love that. I really love that book. It's really good. And there's so much detail in it. I struggle to remember the later half of it. I remember the first half of it really well, but not the later half. So it would be nice to read that someday. But in the meantime, this is another book written sort of about the same time period, 966 to 1017. And I've never read this, and I really want to. So I was very happy this was here. Beautiful condition. Like, there was no reason to have this on the 60% discount sale. So very happy to have this in my hands. Then I decided to pick up a Leo Tolstoy, and this is actually probably the biggest reason I didn't get War and Peace, because I already picked another one. I picked up Resurrection by Leo Tolstoy. The size of this felt quite good. It's just short of 500 pages, and it's talks about a man trying to find redemption by saving another man via a murder trial, and it just sounded very interesting, so I picked up Resurrection. Then I've only read one book by this author, and although I do own another one, I just haven't read it yet, but this is their most famous work, and so I decided to get it because that first book had such an impact that I think that this is an author that I will really fall in love with. And that book or the author is Ngugi Thiong'o, and this is their book Petals of Blood. So this is their most famous work, and it just sounds fast. I mean, after the blurb it says this book was so explosive. So explosive was the theme of this novel that when it was published in 1977, its author was taken into custody and held without charges by the so-called liberal Kenyan government, inciting international protests on his behalf. So, I mean, to have a book that creates that much commotion, fascinating. In his first book that I read about him, not that I read about him, but that I read by him, the title's not going to come to me right now, obviously, because why would it when I most want it? The River Between, there we go. The River Between. Beautiful book. So this is just something that I really, really want to get into because it just sounds so good. Then one other book. I was about to introduce the books of authors that I don't know yet, but I do actually have one more by an author that I have read before. I decided to get another book by D.H. Lawrence because I really liked Lady Chatterley's Lover. That is his most famous book, but this one also sounded really, really interesting. And I really liked his writing in Lady Chatterley's Lover that I wanted to try another one, so I picked up The Rainbow. It again involves conflict and passion and rejecting the conventional role of womanhood, etc., etc. And so I think that sounds really fantastic. So I really want to try another book by D.H. Lawrence. Okay, now 2 books that I do not know the authors, but reading the blurbs sounded like must-reads. The first one I chose was King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. This just sounds just beautiful. It says King Solomon's Mine is a brilliant work of adventure romance that has gripped readers for generations. I love adventure. Get a nice little kick of romance in that. Add legendary diamond mines and a perilous journey, and that sounds like a brilliant read for me. Like, this sounds really, really wonderful, and I really, really love that cover. I think it's just like explosive, like the impact of that cover. Really, really love it. Sounds really, really fun. And then another book I decided to pick up due to the blurb that sounded quite interesting was The Betrothed by Alessandro Manzoni, so by Italian author. I don't read much Italian fiction. I don't think it's, when was the last time I read Italian book? Maybe Elena Ferrante. Yeah, that's the last time I read an Italian book. I don't read that much Italian fiction. And so yeah, translated by Bruce Penman. There we go. Practicing my introduction of translators. Yeah, this just sounds absolutely, it just sounds so good. Set in Lombardy during the Spanish occupation of the late 1620s, The Betrothed tells the story of 2 young lovers prevented from marrying by the petty tyrant, Don Rodrigo, who desires the woman for himself. So they're forced to flee, they're cruelly separated, they have to face many dangers, etc., etc. This just sounded like a wonderful book. Nice, thick, and juicy, 700 pages. I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this. So that just sounded really, 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 really fun. Then I picked up the one book that, if you watched my video where I talked about books I would like to buy, so like books that are on my mental TBR of books I would like to buy in the future. One of those books was in the pile of books off 60% off, and that is Gone with the Wind, the scandalous, controversial Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This is the book, I know the controversy, I know its reputation, both the good and the bad, but I've always wanted to read it myself, figure it out for myself. This is the only book that actually has significant damage. The book is quite bent. I've been pressing it down for like a month, so I'm not going to press it back in the bad direction, but still beautiful. This is not the edition that I initially wanted, but for the price, like, either I could spend my life trying to make more money to buy a better edition of this, or I could spend that time actually reading the book. And I think that's the the more reasonable option, the better option. So yeah, I finally got my hands on the very famous Gone with the Wind, and I'm very interested to see what I think about it. I think it can go either way. Like, I'm really curious. I think it can go either way. Either I love it or I hate it. I kind of don't see myself falling in like the middle area. Then I have 3 more books, this time by Vintage Classics. Really digging these red spines. I have one other book that I know of in this edition, and I'm actually quite fond of them, so I think it's an edition I will look out for more. But I, again, got one Japanese author. I got a Mishima, Yukio Mishima. I got the book Thirst for Love. Mishima is an author, surprisingly enough, that I haven't really read that much of his work. In fact, it's probably the biggest comment I get on my favorite 10 novels by Japanese authors video, where everyone's like, there's no Mishima on the list. Why is there no Mishima on the list? Like, how can you not have Mishima on the list? Well, to be honest, I just haven't read enough of his works, and the ones that I have read, there hasn't been one that I've fallen like absolutely in love with. So we're still looking for that. I don't think Mishima's a bad author in any sense of the word. I don't think he's boring. He's definitely not boring. Like Kawabata, can't read him. He's boring. I've abandoned him. But Mishima, no. Like, there's still a relationship with Mishima, but I'm still looking for that, like, you know, I'm thirsting for love. I'm thirsting for love into really, really loving a Mishima book. I've enjoyed them. I just haven't loved them. You know, that's the difference. This is not his most famous work. Obviously, I still need to read his most famous works, but for 60% off, this sounds perfect. Then I decided to get some science fiction. I decided to finally pick up Brave New World, the famous science fiction book, Brave New World, by something Huxley. It says Vintage Huxley. What's the guy's first name? Aldous Huxley. There you go. So Brave New World, very famous science fiction book that sounds so good. Far in the future, the world controllers have created the ideal society. Through clever use of genetic engineering, brainwashing, and recreational sex and drugs, all its members are happy consumers. Bernard Marx seems alone and harboring an ill-defined longing to break free. So that sounds very, very, very good. Very excited to pick that up. So get into some more vintage science fiction. Definitely have been enjoying that journey in my reading journey. Then the last book that I picked up is a book I've always wanted to read. It's also a movie I've always wanted to watch. I know I've watched it in like a hazy sense where I was really, really young when I watched it. My parents were watching it on TV and I was kind of in the background. It's a movie that my parents definitely really enjoyed. It's very famous and it's just like, it's right up my alley. Maybe there was like even like a subconscious like influence on me when I read this that influenced my current tastes. But that book is The Bridge on the River Kwai by Pierre Boulle. Pierre Boulle. This book, I didn't realize because it only says Boulle on the vintage Boulle on the cover. I didn't realize this author was French. I didn't realize this book was originally written in French. So I have the English translation, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm still excited to read this. But this book it's right up my alley. 1943, the British prisoners of war are commanded to build one link in the infamous Bangkok-Rangoon Railway. Colonel Nicholson refuses, as is against regulations for officers to work with other ranks. He is a man prepared to sacrifice his life, but not his dignity. The Japanese give way, but to prove a point of British superiority, construction of the bridge goes ahead at great cost to the men under Nicholson's command. So the war under Japanese authority, prisoners of war. This is a book right up my alley, right up my interest, and I'm very excited to finally, eventually read this. So happy to have this in my hands. And so this is crazy. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 books, which 60% off came out to 17,000 yen, which is like the equivalent to $170 for me. However, I was smart and I used my American credit card to buy the books because the exchange rate when I bought the books was $1 to 161 yen. So I got all 15 books for $100, like not even $100, like $100. $102 basically. So I got 15 books for $102, which is crazy good. It's better than you could ever get back if I bought these books at like half price books in the US. So huge score, so happy, amazing, super excited to have all these books on my list. Some I'll read sooner than later. Classics I tend to dig in, you know, when I'm feeling it, I'll pull it down to read. And then I got some chunky classics. But yeah, super excited about this book haul. I hope you're excited with me. I hope some of these books inspire you to pick them up as well. And let's just exchange those feelings of excitement for reading. So yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching my English summer book haul, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye.